This story happened when I was 16 years old. I was in grade 9 at the time, or freshman year, as you guys would call it. And usually, what I would do is I would just take one bus home from school and it would just take me straight home. But there would be some times where I would take the longer way because my friends were. So, this particular day, I decided to take a longer way. So, that means I decided to take the bus from school to the station nearby, a bus station nearby. And from that bus station, I was just going to take a bus. I was just going to take a train, one stop to the station I usually go to. Yeah, to go home. So I know it's confusing. So basically, I like to take the longer way when my friends were around, when I wanted to hang out with them a little bit longer and talk to them a little bit longer after school. That's what I would do. So this is what I did this particular time. Anyway, so after hanging out with my friends for like half an hour or an hour, my parents had a very strict curfew for me, so I couldn't really hang out that long. And I had to kind of calculate it. So like leave at a specific time before my parents got home. So then I could make it look like I was home before them still. Anyway, it was a lot of work, but that's what I used to do. And this particular day, like I said, I took the bus to a different station. I decided that I was going to take the train from that station one stop to the bus station I usually went to. So I got on the I didn't get on the train right away. We were waiting for the train at the platform, and I took notice of what I thought was a couple nearby. And, you know, you're waiting for the train, you're listening to music, you're looking around, walking around, you take notice of things. And it seemed like, you know, nothing was weird or abnormal about them. Like, they seemed to be talking at first glance, because I'm just listening to music, keep in mind. And my music is on blast, so I can't really hear the conversations around me. I can just see. So from first glance, nothing abnormal was really happening. So I just minded my own business. The train comes, we all get on the train, and they're actually standing very close to me. They're standing at the doors, and then I'm sitting down. If there's a lot of available seats, I like to sit down. Otherwise, if there wasn't, I just stood up and left the open seats for whoever needed them. But I was just sitting down at this one time, at the specific time, sorry, and I was directly in front of them. So I'm listening to my music, and then obviously when you're on the train, it's really awkward because there's people in front of you, sitting right in front of you, so you do your best to just like look around, look at ads, read ads as long as you possibly can until you get to your stop, or look at your phone and pretend you're reading something on your phone so it doesn't look like you're just staring at strangers. So that's what I was trying to do until this couple caught my attention again. Okay, I was looking up at one of the ads, and then I started looking at the map to kind of get an idea of where I was, because, you know, I wanted to keep track. So I look up and happened to catch the eyes of the girl I was looking at earlier, and she looked very uncomfortable. Like it was a mix between sad and uncomfortable, if I could describe the look on her face. And so I'm looking at her, and she's looking back at me, and again, I just don't think anything of it. I just start listening to my music, get in the zone again, and then I catch her eye again. And I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and she's still looking really upset. Like this time she start, like, you know, when somebody's getting impatient and they start shaking their leg, or, you know, tapping their foot against something. That's kind of what she was doing, but she looked nervous, and she was looking around, and she was looking up, and she was looking like left, right, down, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is really weird, because she's looking everywhere else except to the guy that I thought was her boyfriend. So I'm like, this is really weird. So again, I'm like, okay, it's probably nothing. Don't overthink about things. So I look at her one more time, and that's when I realize, like, she's visibly upset about something. And I should have like tuned in faster, but as a teenager, you're stupid. You don't think to do these things. So I tune in at this time, and I'm nosy as hell, guys. So when I take notice of something, I usually pause my music and I start listening into conversations and tuning into my surroundings to see what's going on. I only do this if something piques my interest. If I believe that something's going on, that maybe I need to intervene or something nowadays, because back then I did not have the balls to do this. Okay, I was 15 or 16. I literally, like, somebody could have just pushed me down with one finger and I would have fallen. So I was too scared. But so now I'm tuning in. I pause my music just to kind of like hear what's going on, because the subway's loud, right? So even if I lowered the volume, I wouldn't have been able to hear them properly. So I start tuning in. I've said this for the third time, and I'm listening to them talk, and this is the first time I'm hearing them talk. So the first thing coming out of the guy's mouth is, "Hey, what's your name? You're pretty." And then the girl ignores him. Then he says, can I have your phone number? I really want to keep in contact with you. I want to talk to you. You're really beautiful. And she's just looking around. She's trying not to make eye contact with him or even look at him. She hasn't even looked at him directly at this point. So I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? This is really weird. And then that's where he gets creepy. He's basically saying, where do you live? And she's just like, I don't want to tell you, okay? Like, please leave me alone. And that's when I realized something was really off. And he started saying, oh, well, don't worry. If you don't want to tell me, I'm going to find out. And she's like, just leave me alone, okay? Like, she just keeps telling me, like, leave me alone, leave me alone. And he's like, don't worry. When you get off the train, I'm going to follow you and I'm going to find out where you live. And at this point, she just looked so nervous and anxious and upset. Like, she looked, she was gonna burst into tears. And at that moment, I got nervous for her. But as somebody who was 15 or 16, like, I didn't know what to do, because I was by myself. And this is a fully grown man. He's like mid-30s. I want to say he didn't look that old, but he was much older than I was, for sure. And a little bit older than her. She was a little bit older than I was. So I looked around. I'm looking around, looking at people, and there's other people who are fully aware of what's going on. They're fully aware of the situation, but they're not doing anything. And these are people who are older than I am. I was so close to doing something, but something stopped me that said, stop, don't get involved, because what if something happens to you? And like, I just kind of scared myself into not doing it. So my stop came. I ended up getting off, and as I get off, I'm just kind of standing there still in disbelief. And I look back, and he's still trying to talk to her and do the same thing, and she's still looking nervous. And she's like, like that look of disappointment when you're like sad and disappointed at the same time. This kind of the look she had on her face. And it kind of like shattered my heart into pieces, because I didn't know what was happening after that. I went home, and the entire day, that's what I was thinking about. What happened to that girl? Did she get home safe? Is everything okay? Like, what happened? And years later, I'm still thinking about it, because it's like I felt like I didn't do anything for her. I felt like I had an opportunity to say something and intervene, and I didn't really do that. So it's one of those things where you're torn because you don't know what to do. As a teenager, you're like, I'm not gonna say this about all teenagers, but like, I think some of you guys can understand where I'm coming from. I was kind of a scaredy cat back then, because I didn't know what was gonna happen. This guy's older. He could easily like have overtaken both of us if he really wanted to. But I still think back to that day, and I still think back like, oh, what if I had just pretended to be her friend and said, hey, like, come to my house, let's go like watch a movie or something, or hey, I remember you, like, come on, let's go, let's go do whatever, or let's go to your house together or something. And he would have maybe laid off. So, but you don't know how people are going to react. That's the only thing. And I feel like if I had intervened and said something like that, like, what if that person followed me home? You know, what if that attention was put onto me instead? So there was no guarantee that, like, I was going to be safe. Like, I would have saved her, but there's no guarantee that I was going to ensure my own safety. Because what if that person suddenly turned his attention to me? Which at one point, I think that almost happened anyway, because I was looking at her so much and we were looking back and forth at each other so much that he literally took the hint and he looked right to me and he was looking right into my eyes. And I'm like, fuck, this guy's noticing that I'm noticing something is off. And that gave me more reason to not want to get involved. But to this day, I'm like a little firecracker because of that situation. That situation changed me, like, for life. I don't care if I'm tinier than everybody else, but I will say something if I see something. So if you guys do see something like that, try to do your best to intervene. I know it's easier said than done. I didn't in that situation, but there's been so many others where I've had to. And I don't care how small I am. I don't care how weak I look or whatever. Like, nobody fucks with me now. I've been in situations where I've had to defend myself a lot. And I feel like you have to stand up for yourself, and you have to, where you possibly can, try to help defend other people as well, because not everybody has developed that sort of courage to be able to do so. And some people don't know that they have it in them either. And a lot of people are also afraid. And if I noticed it as a teenager, I know that other people around me definitely noticed. And I know they noticed because I saw them looking at this person, but they didn't do anything. And these were adults that were older than me. And it was 2, 3, 4 people that could have easily overtaken this guy. But yet nobody did anything. Because people have this attitude that it's like, it's not my business. I shouldn't get involved. I shouldn't intervene. It's her business. Let her deal with it. But by the time you let her deal with it, maybe it's too late. Maybe she ends up a missing person, or you never know, even worse. I'm not trying to scare people by any means, but this is why it's so important to say something if you see something. If you can't do anything, if you can't intervene, at least say something to somebody. Okay? And now there's lines everywhere, especially in my city where I live, where you could just text someone and say, hey, this person's in danger, or even press the emergency alarm and stop the trains, and somebody will investigate the situation. The trains don't go anywhere. So then you have, maybe a conductor come by and say, hey, what's going on? And you explain the situation. There's X guy on train saying X things to this girl. Please help her out. And he wouldn't have been able to do anything because, there's so many other witnesses there on the train. It would have just taken one person. But these are things I think of after the fact. And it still doesn't change the fact that I don't know what happened to this person. I don't know if she's okay to this day. I don't know, if she made it home safe. And it's probably another YouTube story time video. That's what I'm hoping, fingers crossed. And she told literally everybody. And it changed her for the better. And, she's good. Or I don't know if the worst thing happened. So, yeah, I was a coward on that day. I take full accountability for that. I feel like I could have been more, I could have spoken up for this person. But, at that time, I just couldn't. And there's no justification, so I'm not even gonna try to justify it. But for the third time, if you guys see something, say something. It's super important. Don't let things like fear stop you, because it's gonna haunt you for the rest of your life, like it does with me. And I still think about it to this day, and it's been years. I'm not 16 anymore. I'm 28 now. I'm turning 28 in like a few days. And it still bothers me. So I still think about it. And the fact that I still think about it makes me think that I didn't do the right thing. I didn't do what I was supposed to in that situation. Even if I was young, I feel like I still could have done something, or at least said something to somebody. But I said nothing at all. So like nothing was done. Nothing came of it. For all the people that do speak up for others, I thank you, and I thank you for being brave enough to intervene. Again, if you're not brave enough to intervene, at least say something to an authority figure or anybody for that matter. But I feel like I've spoken enough. I don't want to bore you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And again, more content will be available every Wednesday. So stay tuned. And I'll catch you guys in the next story time.